Hi. So we wanted to finish that last little bit about judicial independence. So taking out your notes, I can't remember what it's on the back of. I think it's on the back of Bill's No Good Day. There are some notes on judicial independence. On Moodle, I have this link as well as another short link from YouTube that I'd like you to watch on this. You can watch this independently after your quiz or prior to your quiz, whatever works for you. So let's talk a little bit about judicial independence. Judicial independence is an example of a check and balance, which is kind of cool that we've been talking about that in American lit in particular, in American government, sorry, in particular. But it's a guarantee that one branch is not going to become more powerful than the other two. And so how is judicial independence a guarantee that that's not going to happen? Well, it's the ability for the judges to act without concern of the day-to-day whims of politics and to worry about whether they are going to be able to protect their jobs, because their job is to protect the liberties and to prevent tyranny of the majority. And every time a judge is threatened with removal of office through impeachment because of an unpopular decision, that is in response, and that is a direct threat to judicial independence. Because really the only job of a judge is to interpret the law. And if they have all of these unnecessary challenges to their job, then they can't do that. They can't look at it objectively. They can't look at it independently. What they do is they look at it through the glasses of, well, is this going to be a popular decision or not? But there are other things that judges do as well. A judge will keep the courts working and decide cases. A judge will explain legal procedures and make procedural rulings. A judge will mediate among parties to settle disputes. A mediation, we're going to talk about in the next chapter, is something that's not legally binding. A judge also makes fair and impartial decisions. And lastly, it's the judge's job to listen to the facts and apply them to the laws. And so a judge interprets the laws. That is his or her primary focus. But these are also some of the other things that he does. So every time judicial independence is threatened, it is threatened through these different ways. So let's say a judge's opinion is criticized in the newspaper. It might make him or her think differently about the next opinion. Judges have been known to find picketers in front of their house if their decision is unpopular. A person can approach a judge and give his or her opinion about an upcoming case. That would threaten judicial independence. Another thing that can happen is if corporations or businesses contribute heavily to judges' reelection, and that is why judges are elected for life, so that they don't have to worry about reelection. In Iowa, however, that is not the case. Judges are appointed, and then after that, they have to keep their jobs every 5 years, I believe it is, through a reelection. When state governments threaten to cut a judicial budget, lower people's salaries, reduce the number of workers that they need in order to have the courts run smoothly, that is a threat. Every time you threaten somebody's livelihood and threaten their income, then that is a threat to judicial independence, because the judicial branch does rely on the legislative branch's budget. And legislatures have been known to pass laws that deny courts from reviewing it. So they'll pass a law, and inside that law it will say, and this law is barred from any litigation. And essentially what they're doing is they're preventing the courts from doing their job. Those types of laws have been found under most cases to be unconstitutional, but the legislative branch still makes those attempts. Okay. At the bottom of your notes, it talks about due process. Due process, remember, is procedural law. We talked about this a lot when we were doing Bill's Bad Day. It is the procedure that you go through when you're arrested, put on trial, and convicted. And as you can see, we have the 6th, 7th, 8th, 5th, 6th, 7th, and 8th amendments that deal with that. For example, the 5th Amendment deals with the idea that you have the right to a grand jury, eminent domain, and the right to remain silent. The 6th Amendment guarantees you a speedy trial, a jury, the right to face your witnesses, and to have a lawyer. The 7th Amendment, anything that is above $20, you have the right to take to court in a civil suit. And the Eighth Amendment protects you from cruel and unusual punishment and excessive bail. So if you're arrested for a traffic violation, you're not going to have $1 million bond. That is violates the U.S. Constitution. All right. So these are the notes that you need for your judicial independence. After you are done taking these notes, please watch the second video that is on Moodle that came from the federal court system that talks about judicial independence. And then hopefully I'll see you tomorrow.